Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Think Tank Sports. Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen. Check us out on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, and the IG. Listen to us on podcasts for Spotify for podcasters. I still can't get this right. My gosh. Or wherever you get your podcasts, Apple and all those, Amazon, we're out there. You can listen to us and watch us, of course, here on YouTube. Woohoo! Here we are, yay, in our Yankees gear, even though we're not talking about the Yankees right now. But yeah, so we are going to put our bow, if you will, on the present that was the NCAA tournament. See what I did there? And discuss the Final Four, the two Final Four games and the championship game. Whew. All that being said, got somebody else on the podcast. Hey, Mike, how's it going there, buddy?
Good, pal. Thanks for the introduction. It's interesting the way you putting a bow on the president of the Final Four. That was a nice twist of words there. And I want to get back to that, as we get deeper into this podcast. But the Final Four games on Saturday, Dave. Well, let's just get UConn Miami out of the way.
Yeah, please.
It was UConn, another UConn dominating game. Miami's guards just weren't shooting, couldn't handle the defensive pressure. I thought Larinaga should have pressed earlier. When they pressed late, it was a little bit effective and it kind of closed the gap a little but it still ended up 72-59. Miami, great run, great story. Have some athletes to build on, but just not a competitive game in that game. What did you have anything else for that one?
No, 32% from the field for Miami. I think we had talked about it. I thought, Miami's guards had been doing really well. I thought they would continue to shoot well. But 7 of 20 overall from threes, 35% actually shoot better from three than from the field overall. Yeah. But it definitely, it was definitely a struggle. And like you said, Connecticut is very good, and it was just another Connecticut game. It never felt in doubt.
Yeah. After the first game of the night, this was like a dry popcorn fart of a game for something where people coming into the Final Four said that would be the championship game because they felt like Miami was the best opponent for UConn, which did turn out to be true, I guess, in some level. But so let's go to the other game, Dave. Why don't you break that down for us?
Yeah, so the San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, the two Cinderellas, whatever you want to call them, the small schools, the mid-majors, whatever you want to call it. These two teams, Mike, really had just great runs in the tournament. Was great to see the two of them against each other. The first half I thought was really, well played. FAU is up 7 at the half. The second half, and I will be honest, I got wrapped up in the drama. And this game just had tons of drama. Just the back and forth in the second half was just incredible. Just big shots. There were some boneheaded plays. I got to get his name here.
Well, wait, before you look at his name.
Yeah, before we go there.
Name me one player on San Diego State University roster without looking.
On San Diego State's roster?
Yeah.
That Martin kid.
Okay. All right.
Oh no, crap. He's on Florida Atlantic. Jeez Louise. Yeah.
Right. That's a point I want to get to later, but
yeah.
Let's continue.
No, it's worthwhile.
And that's San Diego State.
No, the Golden, the big guy for Florida Atlantic, he has this huge rebound with like 2 minutes to go and turns and just passes it. Doesn't even look and passes it right out. And there's a San Diego State guy, 10 feet from him. I said it at the time. One of the worst turnovers I've ever seen.
I mean, it wasn't. Who was my boy in Georgetown that threw the pass to Michael Jordan?
Freddie Brown.
Freddie Brown. Yeah,
Oh,
it wasn't Freddie Brown style, but yeah. Or even Kia Clark, if you want to just go back to the beginning of the tournament. But yeah, it was not good. It was not
yeah,
good.
It was
a big rebound, momentum going the other way, and then instantly turn it back over.
Yeah.
So that was a pivotal moment.
Yeah. So like I got caught up in the drama of all that, but you know, the officiating in the second half was just horrendous.
Oh my gosh.
Things just totally right. The whole tournament really had been bad. I thought, you know, again, this game, just another highlight of, you know, physical versus not physical. We're calling this, we're not calling that. You know, and quite honestly, you know, San Diego State didn't take advantage. They missed so many freaking foul shots. They're 13 of 22, 59%. And I kept saying they're going to lose this game.
Right. So rare that you win shooting.
Yeah. You're going to lose this game because of how many foul shots they missed. But just, you know, great drama back and forth. You know, kudos
set up the last shot for us.
To both teams. Right. So you've got Butler, right? Yeah. So, yeah, this is interesting because Florida Atlantic, they had the ball. Geez, I think, Mike, with like 35 seconds left or something like that, and ran the clock down to like 15, somewhere's in there, and called timeout.
Right.
I'm not a big proponent of that. Like, come across midcourt and call timeout, get a play set up. I just thought after that, they came back out. They didn't quite have enough time to do what they wanted to do. They looked a little scrambled. This was just my take on it after the fact. They could have just, it would have been beneficial to have more time to set the play up. And there's a lot of coaches do that. They'll run it down to 15.
Right. And then they want their guard to go at like 8, get a shot off at 3. And so you get a potential rebound. Right. I got it.
So I wasn't crazy about that. You know, they get off a shot, and, you know, San Diego State is able to get the rebound. San Diego State had a timeout. You know, they rebounded the ball with what, like 9 seconds left?
Under 10, but yeah.
You know, they had a timeout. They could have, you know, rushed to midcourt and got a timeout maybe with like 6 seconds, but nope. You know, it gets down there. Butler just, you know, he goes to the baseline, looks like he's going to get cut off, does the smart thing, keeps his dribble, you know, doesn't like stop and get trapped because they were looking.
Right.
You know, Florida Atlantic was looking to trap him, and then he dribbles back to the left, and just a sweet looking jumper. Now, I know it doesn't win them the championship and all of these things, but that's as big a shot as you're going to see in a college basketball game outside of Chris Jenkins, you know, Villanova against North Carolina in 2016. That's as big a shot as you're going to see.
Right.
You know, right down to the end, runs the timeout.
So here's why that is so brilliant, not calling the timeout, because I'm sure someone in the FAU huddle would have told their players, if it's late in the clock and someone's dribbling the ball, 2 or 3 guys run at him because there's no one else that's going to take the shot.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. They left the poor defender on an island. He got crossed up, and the guy was wide open for the shot. Nobody ran at him. You know, like you said, they were looking to trap, but late game situation, they didn't have San Diego State call. If San Diego State calls that timeout, that conversation happens, and maybe it's a more challenged shot, and we don't know what happens.
Yep. Oh yeah, totally. You could make that.
So brilliant.
You're making a really good argument.
Brilliant call for not calling, because clearly they had talked about that. Clearly they had a play in mind and practice that situation, and that comes from this guy, this coach. I can never remember his name, but he's Steve Fisher, who established. He's Steve Fisher's all-time assistant.
It's Dutcher, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Brian Dutcher.
You know, with him in Michigan when they won the championships, all of that. Been San Diego State forever with him. So that you can draw a direct line from Steve Fisher to Dutcher to that situation being handled exactly perfectly.
Yeah.
That's why coaching matters in these programs right there. And we'll
Yep.
get to one in the championship game too, where coaching matters. So yeah, a tremendous shot, exciting. You know, very rarely, I thought I heard, but you made a good point with the Villanova kid. I thought I heard this was the like the first buzzer beater in the actual Final Four, like all the famous buzzer beaters, like at Valpo and Tyus Edney and all those guys were earlier rounds. But you're right, the Villanova kid very recently.
Well, and also the kid from Gonzaga did it against UCLA. That was also
right.
in
And
the Final
he's
Four.
smart not to bring up a terrible, you know, but that was a buzzer beater in the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, there was still a few seconds left on the clock.
Okay, yeah, it was some. Okay, you're right, because it was some Fakakta qualification like in less than 1.5 seconds. So you're right. You're making a very good point. As usual, double dip Dave hammering even in the face of the roughest play in the history of Syracuse basketball.
Yeah. It's
what's
definitely
worse than that? Real quick while we're here, that or John Thompson closing down Manly Fieldhouse? What's the worst moment? Or one I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, the John Thompson thing, that's rough, but that was the springboard for a tremendous Syracuse-Georgetown rivalry where both teams had plenty of big wins as far as that goes. The Indiana game, I mean, that definitely hurts. More
recent in the term where Boeheim ran on the court and practically mauled the ref and got teed up late in the game.
That was a regular season game against Duke.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. With the block call instead of the charge against
block
CJ Fair. Yeah.
Right.
Terrible.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the only other thing I think about NCAA tournament wise is the 2012 Elite Eight game against Ohio State, a game which many people said how horribly officiated it was.
Yep.
Heavily on the Ohio State side, tons of fouls. This is the 2012 team that did not have Fab Melo, but made it to the regional final. Arguably, one of the greatest Syracuse teams. It's not. They are one of the greatest Syracuse teams. Ended up 35-4 after that loss. Number one seed. That one really hurt because that year they just won. They just freaking won everything. They were number one most of the year. Anyways, we digress.
That was the Syracuse Moments here, sponsored by Double Dip Dave.
Yeah, right.
And
now, back to the championship game. Going into this, everybody's saying this is Connecticut's game. They play the way they can play, they will win, and San Diego State doesn't have any chance. And I didn't necessarily agree with that. I thought San Diego State plays really good defense. They could stay in it. Well, that wasn't really the case.
No.
I think what you saw in this game more than anything, I thought this game really highlighted how good Connecticut's defense was. I mean, the number of tipped passes and steals and
so long and athletic in the front court,
turnovers,
the monsters in the back court to block shots.
San Diego State just couldn't really get going. Now there was a bunch of there were some times where they took some bad shots. I thought they could have moved the ball around a little bit better. But they shot 32%, just like Miami. Well, Miami shot 32. So spot on with that. But kudos to San Diego State. They did make it close. I mean, you'd never know it, but it was 60-55.
And that's the most pivotal point of the game for me, Dave, is just after the 8-minute timeout and 5 points, and UConn misses a shot. San Diego State gets the rebound, but the kid fumbles it out of bounds. UConn gets a bucket after the inbounds play, and that was it. It was off to the races.
And then I think there was another 3-pointer right after that for Connecticut too. It was like a really quick 5 points.
huge turnaround, and that was it. And then it was a free throw contest. I don't
Oh,
think the game was poorly officiated, but it was over officiated, especially at the end. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
But definitely, look, kudos to Connecticut. They were able to, just steamroll along like they have in every other game. Um,
so they
great.
win every game by what, 13 points or more.
Yeah,
Um,
at least there.
they
Uh,
trailed for 55 seconds in the second half the entire tournament. Just crazy run. They win their fifth title in 24 years. I guess we'll get right to this question. Are they now considered a blue blood, Dave?
Oh,
Are they
I don't think there's any question.
okay?
I think the challenge with comparing them to other blue bloods, if you
A
will,
new
is
blue blood, though.
more sustained success, right? Jim Calhoun came in the 86-87 season.
Right,
You look at Connecticut in 1988 wins the NIT. And that kind of was the springboard right there to,
right,
you get to 89, they're better. 1990, they win the Big East and do some nice stuff in the tournament and go on from there. All these other teams, that was just a blip on their radar for seasons, but yeah, they're up there. I mean, it's five titles
right,
in 25 years
right. Three this century, or three coaches also
and three
this
different
century.
coaches. Yeah.
Poor Kevin Ollie had to die for this program, but that's okay. I shouldn't say he wasn't exactly a great guy off the court, so
No,
I shouldn't say
no.
poor Kevin Ollie, but
Yeah.
um, for me, they remind me of LSU in football, Dave.
Mm,
They come out of nowhere and they're tremendous. Like,
yeah.
look at the dominance we just talked about in this tournament. Probably one of the better runs. Villanova a couple of years ago was equally as dominant. But when you think about just dominating teams through the entire tournament, their name's going to have to be mentioned going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But are they a blue blood? So there's four blue bloods, right? Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas.
Mm-hmm. You have to put UCLA in there
Okay. Five
because
blue
of the
bloods.
number of titles they have. Now, has their success the last 20 years been there? Not really, but they have to be there.
Okay. So five, like, really, and blue blood's such a weird term because it
Yeah.
comes from the royal family being ancestral and their blood being messed up. But anyway, um, what's the next tier of UConn's, Villanova, Syracuse, Georgetown? I mean, what's the next tier of um, long-term success in college basketball? Michigan State, Michigan, it's a bigger pool, right? I'm just
Yeah,
throwing.
yeah. You're looking at those teams. You have to talk Gonzaga. I know we
Yeah,
kind of talked
absolutely.
about this a few weeks ago.
Absolutely do.
Gonzaga has
Yep.
to be in the mix there at that
Florida for
point.
years, but not anymore. Like, Billy Donovan had a nice run
Yeah,
down there, but
yeah. Not
that was
not
a
enough.
dynasty for 5-7 years.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
enough sustained
Okay.
success.
Okay. Any of the Southern teams, Texas, Oklahoma has had some success in the past. Oh, I guess Indiana, we'd have to say, is a blue
Yeah.
blood.
Oh, yeah. Indiana.
Yeah, we missed that
Absolutely.
one. Our tens of fans are screaming right now, Indiana, or whatever other school we're forgetting.
Yeah. No, I mean,
So
I think,
my point is, UConn's at the top of that next tier right now with this win, in my
yeah.
opinion. You want to argue that, or you're good?
I mean, they're definitely right there. I think again, the difference is the long periods of sustained success. The
Right.
Kentucky, the Duke, Kansas, North Carolina, and UCLA just have more sustained success than UConn. Plain and
Right.
simple. I mean, Connecticut just Jim Calhoun put them on the map, and it wasn't that long ago. So, yeah, I think you can put them in that next tier. But I mean, they've got 5 titles.
Right.
They're cruising right
Now,
along.
Dan Hurley, will not be Kevin Ollie, I don't believe, and be gone, or Calhoun, who really was messy at the end, really messy.
Yeah.
Ended up getting the program in a lot of trouble. The coaching point I wanted to make is you can look at this UConn team, and there are going to be some detractors that say they didn't really play anybody in the Big East, or anybody in the tournament. All the ones are gone. They beat Gonzaga handily, but
Yeah.
still, they didn't get Alabama, they didn't get Kansas. But
Oh,
that's
well,
not their fault.
they won.
Right.
They won 6 games and nobody else
Right.
did.
Right, by double digits and dominated.
Plain and simple.
Right. They did have a terrible January where they lost 5 in a row, so that's going to hurt them all time, for sure. But Danny Hurley built this program, and you can see, when someone comes in and says, "I have a 4-year plan," you can physically see it on the court. That's why his plan took a few years to put into place.
Yep.
But then when he got the 2 guys in the middle, I can never pronounce
Sonogo
and the other kid.
And Klingon, yep.
Right. But all the other pieces were already there. The guards, the long defenders, the deep bench, all of that stuff.
Yep.
And now he can plug and play superstars and continue to replenish what he's built. So Danny Hurley now becomes, we had the conversation last podcast about college basketball, the coaches that, the top tier coaches in NCAA, and how it's, really gone downhill in the last few years with all the retirements.
Mm-hmm.
We have to put his name up there now, right? Do we have to put him up there with the Izzos and the Bill Self, which I think is going to retire because of health reasons, but technically right now,
I mean, those guys,
he's not there.
Multiple titles. I mean, look, if you want to talk about great coaches, I mean, I think you definitely put him up there.
So up and coming coaches, then he's at the top of the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's above Nate Oates and Musselman in Arkansas.
Oh God, there's a lot of people that are above Nate Oates.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. So Dave, give me this. Name me as many schools as you can that Dan Hurley would leave Connecticut for going forward. Because right now he could be UConn's coach for the rest of his life if he wanted to. Assuming, everything stays above board. Can you see a scenario in 3 years where John Shire's not doing well and he goes to Duke?
I mean, I certainly could see it.
That's an upgrade though, right?
Oh yeah,
okay.
For sure. But Connecticut has Gamble Pavilion, which is slightly bigger than.
Are you going to sell me Stores, Connecticut, or Raleigh?
I'm just doing is comparing facilities.
Okay, that's
and they're similar.
You're comparing it to Cameron Indoor Stadium, which is the most famous arena in college basketball.
Yeah, but I mean they're similar size wise.
Okay. Like
it's not like he's at Connecticut and they have like 5,000 seats. No, they're very similar. Gotcha. But Duke we just put them ahead of Connecticut. So yeah, there would definitely be an upgrade. Okay. Yeah, I could see him going there. He feels like an Eastern guy,
Yeah, I don't think any of those Southern boys would like to get MF'd by him in the hallway after, a bad pass or whatever. They're a little softer down there.
The only, I think, challenge going to a place like Duke, with his brother having played there, like, does he want to go down that road? I could see that being.
All right, so go across the street to North Carolina. Hubert Davis isn't doing well.
Yeah.
2-3 years. Could he go there?
Sure. If he continues with this success, the options are going to be, whatever he wants.
Right. So my question is, what small, I think, list of schools?
Yeah.
That. So we have Duke and North Carolina. Anybody else he would leave for?
Do you put a team like Rutgers out there because
no way.
They're all from New Jersey, and it would get him into the, if he feels like confident with the Connecticut rebuild, he wants to do another rebuild. I don't know. Just thinking it's a little bit closer to home. Would he consider
I understand your train of thought. No way.
Seton Hall? That's where he went to school. Would he consider Seton Hall?
Lateral. That's still a down.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
These were just,
Yeah.
he can have any job he wants, but where does he want to go?
Okay.
Yeah.
Kansas opens up. Bill self-retires. Whoever takes over sucks in a couple of years. UCLA opens up. Mick Cronin,
Yeah, I
gets old in a hurry everywhere,
Yeah, I don't know about UCLA.
I can't see him on the West Coast. You're right.
I can't see him on the West Coast, but if you're a college coach and you're successful and the UCLA job comes open and they come calling, you got to at least listen, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is where I think the rubber meets the road with him,
Yeah.
So a handful of schools.
Yeah.
He's in a good spot. He's at UConn, very, cemented at a legacy now. And can build from here and replenish and do it for years. Or one of these tremendous jobs will open up to him.
Yeah.
But I don't think you go to a Purdue or a Indiana even.
Well, Indiana, I could see.
Yeah. Maybe.
But right now you got Mike Woodson there and he's an alum and
Oh yeah, I don't think
they had a good,
right
they had a good year. I mean, that would have to be down the road a bit. But I could see that. I could definitely see Indiana.
Okay. Anything else here on UConn or the championship, or where does San Diego State go from here? They could be back. FAU returning almost everybody. Certainly their core players, as long as they don't transfer to a bigger school. Transfer portal's got 1,000 players in it already.
Yeah. Look, I think San Diego State, Mike, has an opportunity to build off of this. I don't think there's any question that they can build on it. That they've been in the national, limelight here for a couple of weeks. Again, transfer portal, nice weather. I think that the only challenge that I see there is style of play, right?
Absolutely.
If you go there, you have got to be willing to play defense. And I have seen plenty, and you have watched way more college basketball in the last few years than I have. And I've seen plenty of games where no defense is played at all. And so the players that go there are going to have to buy into the system, and buying into the system is you got to be able to play defense for 40 minutes or you're not going to survive there.
And they're cemented enough in their beliefs that they won't take a player if they think there's even a possibility they won't conform to their system. So
I think that's the challenge, but I think, they're in a good spot where they can, people know, hey, we can get there. We can, if I like to play defense, it doesn't mean you have to be offensively challenged by any stretch, but you've got to be willing to play defense.
Absolutely. So let's end it on this bigger picture note. So there's a lot of people chirping that this basketball tournament wasn't great. It did have some big moments. I mean, obviously, Fairleigh Dickinson beating, the 1 seed Purdue, the UCLA Gonzaga game was big. Who was my boy on TCU? Noel or K-State in Madison Square Garden that had the big weekend.
Noel.
A star kind of inside. He'll be a legend inside the tournament. And you had the great buzzer beater in the Final Four. So I think overall it was a very entertaining tournament. No, the quality of basketball, not great. We've talked about that for a couple of years now. When you started doing one and dones and people leaving so quickly for the NBA or not even coming to college basketball with the G League and overseas, this quality was going to dip. But then remember, Dave, maybe beginning of the year, I talked about this NIL is going to save college basketball. And that's what you're seeing happen. These mid-major teams now are going to keep their core, but blue bloods and the Power Five teams are also going to start keeping their core players till they're at least juniors because they're getting paid so much. They would be foolish to leave college and go get paid, 10% of what you're making probably to get a sales job or getting whatever marketing job you're going to get, or, whatever your major is. Instead of going back for one more year and playing the game you love. So you're going to see in the next 2 or 3 years, the quality is going to come up. I mean, look at a team like Kentucky. All those guys are coming back. That guard Proctor, and he's bringing everybody back. Duke, Filipowski or Filipowski, whatever his name is.
Live. Yeah, Filipowski, yep.
Proctor. All those guys are coming back. Plus, they got guys coming in. So now they got a year under their belt. You think those guys at Duke aren't anxious to get back to the tournament and prove that what happened to them against Tennessee will never happen again? They won't get out toughed. So hang in there, I'm saying, is my point for college basketball fans or the casual fan that thinks it's not worth watching it. And there were no superstars. I asked you to name me a San Diego State player. You named an FAU player.
Okay, which is tough because I've watched these games, but
But my point is there were no
your point is well
even
taken.
on UConn. Sanogo turned into the biggest player in the tournament. He was so dominant, but it wasn't like Zion Williams or these people of the past.
Right.
There was more buzz about that Wembanyama kid. Had some highlights come out on the internet that were that kid's going to be amazing and should not play college. He should be probably an all-star in the league at this point already.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going on and on and on about the future of basketball because I'm passionate about it. I care about it. I know you do too.
Yeah. No.
Why don't you give me some thoughts on what I just said and wrap us up here, buddy?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, it's a very different game that and league and time in college basketball, for anybody, I don't know, what do you want to say? Like 25 or older, you remember a very different game. And this is a huge
and that was
shift.
Down from when we were kids. When we were kids, everyone stayed until at least you were a senior. If you left when you were junior, it was like when Jordan left early, everyone was shocked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway.
Yeah, no. So I think it's very, very different. It's going to take some getting used to. I think I said this, the last podcast or before. This is why some of these coaches got out. This is why Jay Wright got out. Jim Boeheim made some comments this week on an interview where you could tell he was kind of saying the same things. And, these coaches, Roy Williams, they got out because it's changing and they're not, they're at a point where they don't need to do that. Now, for the rest of us, we've got to, dig in and get to this and, pay attention to the transfer portal and all these players going all over the place. And,
it's a wild, wild West free agency out there.
Yep. I mean, it really is with, very little restrictions. I mean, imagine if, any of the professional leagues players could just change teams every year.
Right.
Without, just think about that. I mean, that's where college basketball is a few years into this. The professional leagues would just be crazy. It's crazy enough when you see 3 guys who, their contracts are up or they demand a trade and they end up on the same team. And that's happened a little bit, but not to the extent that it can happen in college basketball. So I think it has the potential as it continues to develop to, make for hopefully some really good teams and some really, great games. I don't know. For me, like the verdict is still kind of out on it. I understand why they're doing it. It makes sense on a lot of levels, but it's still a little hard to get used to. Mike, you got something else to say?
Yeah. Sorry if you got a minute here. Bear with me. Actually, I have 2 things to say.
I got all the time in the world. We're on a podcast.
All right. Beautiful. I see your eyes darting around. The kids must be acting up, but that's okay.
Yeah. They're just coming in and out of the house here. No worries.
I learned something or confirmed something I think I already knew. I always say on this podcast that I root for chaos, and the NCAA tournament's the perfect setup for that, right? Especially in the early rounds. You love the underdog winning. We love the 15, 16 seeds now winning. But when we get great down to the Elite Eight and Final Four, I want the blue bloods. I mean, or at least a representation of the blue bloods. You know what I mean? One of them have to be there for me to, I think, to either have a villain or a measuring stick for the team that is truly the underdog. Was that Villanova team in '86 really better than Georgetown, or did they just know how to play them? But that was a measuring stick. You had the monster that was Georgetown and the great underdog that was playing out of their mind. And in the championship game, the underdog prevailed, and they're remembered in history forever. And I don't feel like if Florida Atlantic won this tournament, Dave, would we think of them as good as the Villanova team or as big of an upset? You think?
Well, it would have been interesting if you think about how Connecticut had steamrolled through the tournament to have, FAU, hang on against San Diego State and then beat them. I even heard people talking, would this be like a monumental upset if San Diego State won? And some people say, oh, they'd be shocked, but it wouldn't be.
I wouldn't call it monumental.
It wouldn't be an all-time great upset, but I think, you'd have to look at the fact that, and FAU, you saw this, right? The number 9 seeds are 0-9 now in the Final Four.
Right.
So for them to win 2 games after the teams were 0-7 coming in, that would be significant.
Great job pulling Villanova,
that
previously unrehearsed.
Yeah, and Villanova was an 8 seed, I believe, in '85. So this would have been the lowest seeded team to ever win. Right. So I think that would hang, again, greatest upset of all time.
Who got screwed with that run by FAU was Princeton, because Princeton their run was so impressive from a 15, but just, because FAU went a little bit further, even though they were a higher seed, they kind of got overshadowed. Think about this tournament in the lens of college football. Would we enjoy watching teams like Tulane and Boise State and Coastal Carolina play early round games versus, maybe an Auburn or an Oklahoma or, some of these? I'm not talking about, Alabama, Georgia, because we know what would happen there. Right. But some of the better Power 5 teams, Texas versus, somebody like that. Would that be good for football? Because that's where we're heading.
Yeah, that's where we're heading. I mean, we're going to get a
team like Tulane would have made the tournament this year.
Yep, we're going to get the expanded playoff, and I think, that's everybody who pays attention to college football has been begging for that. So the first time we do it, and if there is a team like you said, Tulane or Coastal Carolina or your Liberty Flames, get in there.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you hear pushback from people, oh, this isn't what I want. This is what you people have been asking for 15, 20 years.
Right. So when you end up with Liberty versus BYU in the championship game, you better not be complaining. That's all I'm saying.
Nope. Oh no. I think it's going to be great because we haven't seen it and we've been clamoring for it. And, now we're going to get it.
I'm just thinking how much fun this turn, when you look at all the upsets and the lower seeds advancing, although UConn really was a 1 seed, they had to be a 4 because of that 5-game losing streak in January. But I was on them early, Dave.
Yeah. They came in playing as good as anybody.
Yeah. Accomplished, that I feel good about myself that I was on them early, but it really was luck of the draw too. But we'll go.
So I always have to talk about the Mad Dog, right? And so here's my Mad Dog thing.
Finish it up with the Mad Dog.
Yep. And then we'll close it out here. His son is a graduate assistant, like on the team on UConn. And so he has been talking about UConn
Well,
at least
Bill
as much
Murray's
as you
son
have.
is on what, Princeton or
Oh, I'm trying
St.
to remember which he
Mary's?
was in. He was
He
in
was
the
in Albany.
games in Albany, right?
Right. Princeton or St. Mary's.
I think,
But anyway,
yeah. So it's just interesting, because now, his son will be forever tied as somebody who helped
sure.
coach a team that won a national title. So he was excited. I know he was at the Miami game on Saturday, the Mad Dog was, and then he came back. Anyways, I just thought it was interesting to throw out his son is a coach
Can we
on the
get rid
team.
of Houston as a location for the Final Four? I mean, it should be in Indy. It could be, I guess, in Jerry World.
I am of the
I think
mindset
that's
that
too big.
I really would like to see that move around more.
Oh, really?
The fact that, it was in
Would
Houston
you be
in
happy with a West Coast Final Four that
2016.
starts at 11 o'clock at night?
Oh no, they'd have to make changes for that.
Okay.
And that's probably why they don't have the games out there.
Right.
But I get tired of, the same bunch of sites over and over. I would
What
like
I
to
don't
see
like
it
is
move around.
nobody plays in these size arenas or domes all year. And then you get to the Final Four. It's
Yep.
a totally different situation. Shooting
Mhm.
wise, background wise, airflow, comfort, all of that. So I'd like to see them keep it in traditional college basketball gyms. I know that isn't going to happen because of money, but in my world,
No, they had 72,000 at the championship game on Monday. No, that's definitely
they're not going to go to the gym and with Coach Normdale in Hickory, Indiana.
No, definitely not. But it's interesting. I would like to see it move around more. It's ridiculous that it's been in Houston, twice in 7 years. That's ridiculous to me.
Right. I agree.
Like, please,
Indy,
there's
Orleans,
plenty of arenas.
Charlotte, North Carolina, I think would be a good spot. There's probably stuff in the Midwest. I'm not saying, well, what's wrong with Detroit or
I mean, they've had it in Minnesota,
Right.
Iowa.
I'm sure Des Moines, Iowa has some kind of facility.
Sure. I mean, again, you're talking about numbers and size and all of those things.
Oh, it's all about money, right? That we know that. I'm just dreaming.
Oh yeah.
College basketball.
Well, keep dreaming, big fella, because that's what keeps everything so exciting around here.
Put us to sleep.
Yes, lean and all of those things. But we hope you all have enjoyed Think Tank Sports, our bow on the present that was this year's 2023 NCAA tournament with UConn winning and steamrolling. We hope you've enjoyed us talking about college basketball and moving forward as we go into all of the things we talked about, the NIL and transfers and all that kind of stuff. Keep listening, keep watching, comment, share our stuff. Talk to us, reach out to us. We'd love to engage with our tens of fans. Maybe we could get to 20s of fans at some point, but who knows? Either way, thanks for listening. And we'll be back at you with more content here at Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen as we strive for 5. See you later, everybody.
Well,